I warned to this exact outcome before the election, and people would just say, it's theory. America, is it theory still? Isn't it ironic that outside of the United States Department of Justice headquarters in Washington, D.C., this quote from John Locke, a political philosopher who influenced our social contract, that says, where law ends, tyranny begins, has inspired the work of this agency for generations. Yet, although 6 to 7 DOJ staff quit, resigned because they refused to sign the dropping of charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams, they eventually found 2 other fools to sign instead. Why? Because they were scared they would lose their job, or they were scared that their office would be fired. So as a result, to save their job, what did they do? That sacrificed the United States Constitution. They sacrificed one of the agencies who should not be a political tool. They provided this legitimacy and literally violating their oath to the Constitution by bending to a political will. These actions from what's supposed to safeguard our republic is what made this POTUS very comfortable tweeting out this: "He who saves his country does not violate any law." Now, this can be interpreted in 2 ways. I have an international law background and I focus in political violence, conflict, peace, and security, and this can be interpreted in 2 ways. The first is a sanctioning of political violence, basically saying, hey, I'm not going to follow the law because I'm putting a standard of, if I interpret myself to be saving the country, then it doesn't matter what laws I break. There's no such thing as me breaking any laws because I have immunity. Again, this is something that the 6 conservative judges gave him. So he's interpreting this in order to say that he has impunity and doesn't have to follow the checks and balances and can basically just reshape the Constitution at his will. Why? Because even though court cases may be blocked, if those entities do not follow the court order, who enforces that? The executive agencies. Will they though? The very same DOJ that stuck the public integrity section lawyers into a room and basically told them, you have an hour for someone to volunteer to drop the charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams, or all of you will be fired. Again, the only reason he's getting this is because he basically told the administration, if you get these charges dropped, then I will allow you to basically F the sanctuary city. I'll let you go in and just deport everyone. It's a quid pro quo. So this very same agency fires 20 Biden immigration judges. And what pisses me off is the fact that when people were excited that Biden was putting in a lot of judges, what they didn't recognize and what I did recognize is the fact that an executive is capable, or not capable, however, a tyrant executive, which he proved, because when you put someone who is disqualified through our Constitution in office, then it literally tells them that the Constitution doesn't matter. It's only you who has that supremacy. And that's how he's acting, right? So in this reality, it's not a surprise that he chose to fire 20 Biden immigration judges. In South Africa over here is celebrating it, saying that momentum is growing rapidly to impeach activist judges who repeatedly fail to follow the law. Now, this positions that they are firing based on an arbitrary definition of what is an activist judge. This is a purging of the federal government in order to input loyalists. They're either going to have loyalists or they're going to have staff who already will bend, like the attorneys who signed the charge drops for Eric Adams. But what does this mean? It means that not only are we faced with the reality and where he can and will ignore judge orders, but he will actively purge those who go against his will. Again, EM is saying it out loud. Judges who repeatedly fail to follow the law. Now, which law? The one that he creates against the Constitution. But wherever law ends, tyranny begins. And this is the thing, because people will continue saying the same thing. Oh, sue them. Okay, but who's going to enforce all of that? He's either telling us that he is positioning that this political violence will actually get worse because he is not planning on respecting checks and balances or judge orders, or he is sanctioning social violence that comes from his minions at the bottom. It's basically like a Batman signal that tells them that they're immune from punishment for their actions as long as they are positioning that they are saving the country. They are not violating any laws. This reminds me of 1994 Rwanda, when the Rwandan genocide started, it was because a radio host literally said, cut down the tall trees. And that triggered the unaliving of 800,000 Tutsi Rwandans in only 100 days. So this can either be a sanctioning of the political violence that will come because he's not planning on following the rule of law. He's actually planning on reshaping the rule of law, purging anyone who disagrees, and compromising the branches and agencies so significantly that basically he's going to redefine what law is in a way that advances his own agenda and gives it legitimacy so that it's not seen as illegal. Because it's extremely easy to find people and the staff to do your biddings, right? All you have to say is, I'm gonna fire you, and they'll do it. They'll sacrifice the Constitution for their own jobs. And this is contrary to the oath all executive branch employees take, which means that they're literally stepping over the Constitution knowingly as long as it saves their own skin. This means that they will willingly give us into this tyranny as long as it saves their own skin. This is totalitarianism, is a political system and a form of government that prohibits opposition from political parties, disregards and outlaws the political claims of individuals and group oppositions to the state, which is the country, and completely controls the public sphere and the private sphere of society. In the field of political science, totalitarianism is the extreme form of authoritarianism. So it's the worst form of authoritarianism. And this is inherently anti-constitutional. So when that moment comes where we can no longer ignore that he is actively and publicly ignoring court orders, there's positions that all oath citizens have to resist relentlessly. And how does this look? I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that there are a variety of distinct levels of Americans who have a variety of oaths to the Constitution, some in the military, others in the federal agencies, others in Congress, others in courts. We're all going to be forced to step up and act. How? Now that's unprecedented. However, what we have to recognize is that we don't provoke, we defend, and no matter what happens, he's going to use an excuse to invoke martial law. So don't be afraid of that, because if you're afraid of that, that's going to put you obeying in advance because you're scared of martial law, which is what he wants, so that he can do things without resistance. But we have to resist. We're going to resist in different ways. How I resist won't be the same as how you resist. How someone in a blue state resists won't be the same as someone in a red state. We have to take into account our privileges and also organize in that format. Think about who is the cops more likely to harm, and if that isn't you, then that probably means that you probably should take a much more leading part in whatever is occurring in that mobilization. We have to maximize our privileges to secure the livelihoods and safety of others around us who are more vulnerable to the harm of those who will be policing during these times. I personally have much more trust in the military remembering to obey their oath to protect us rather than the cops. In this reality, we have to understand that it is more likely than not that the spark of whatever it is to come will come from social violence that is committed against our side, but that is worsened by police response to our peaceful demands. And this reality, we just have to pull together in numbers. I mean, there's millions and millions of us. We outnumber them. And what does this mean? I'm not sure. I just know that as soon as this occurs, it's either going to end in a forever tyranny for us, or it's going to end in the rebirth of the nation. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather the latter. We ourselves are born with a citizenship of being guardians of the United States Constitution, so we must defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That is our birthright under our citizenship. That is our birthright as Americans, to not defend the government, to not defend the president, but to defend the Constitution. And the president is attacking it.